Jimbo Paris, and you are listening to The Jimbo Paris Show. All right. Hello, I am Jimbo Paris. Welcome to The Jimbo Paris Show. And today we've got Steve. Let's see what he has to say.
How are you, sir? There we go. All right. You got my face centered. We're in business. Thanks for having me on your show. It's an
I
honor.
can hear the Ukraine accent too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, a little bit. Ukraine by way of the Bronx.
Nice. So let's get started. Can you tell me who you are, what you're about, and what your message is, sir?
Sure. My name's Steve Borys. I'm a high school teacher, social studies and U.S. history and economics. I'm a coach, football and track, and many other things over the years. And recently, I'm an author. I just wrote a new book called How to Beat Stalin, Hitler, and the Southern State Parkway. And that's why I'm here to speak to you folks today. And the message of the book is about how to overcome adversity and how to go on to have a good and successful life despite the odds. And I wrote it, over the COVID period when I saw so many of my friends and relatives and my own children and wife and me, myself, just on the ropes. And I thought this would be a great way to try to contribute and try to help folks and get back in the fight.
And what has been your fight?
My fight, it kind of began back at the age of 5. And that's kind of the premise of the entire book here. Growing up as a kid on Long Island, my family was originally from the Bronx in New York City. And then we moved out to the burbs, right, out on the Long Island there, and started trying to live the American dream, quarter-acre house. And my father worked for the union, and, we're going to have this nice quintessential American life until one fateful day, he's killed in a car wreck on the Southern State Parkway. And from there, things just kind of spiral. I never got over his death as a youngster. I was learning disabled. By the time I was in middle school, I was flunking everything. And I was bullied for being overweight and for other things. And, I was pretty much at the end of my rope. And I didn't see any hope. I didn't see a future for myself. And I was starting to think some unthinkable thoughts. I was thinking about, why should I go on? Why try? Why get up in the morning? And that's when my mother intervened. And my mother was an amazing woman, a very powerful woman, a single mom. I don't know if you know any single moms. They're just incredibly strong people. And how she was able to raise 2 kids on her own, I'm still scratching my head about. And she saw how much pain I was in. And we both had insomnia, and we'd basically every night be up around midnight, sitting at the kitchen table. She would be smoking her Parliament cigarettes, and I'd be eating some coffee cake. Maybe that's why I was chubby. Who knows? But and she would always encourage me like a mom would. You're beautiful. Everything's going to be great. You're going to be smart. But you don't believe your mom, right? She's supposed to say all those things, And, you're just crazy. And that's when she said, "Hey, you know what? You're not the only person in our family who's ever had some trouble." I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" And she said, "Let me tell you about your grandmother, my Ukrainian side of the family, my father's side, my babcha Eva, and that's the Ukrainian word for grandma, babcha."
Okay.
And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I didn't know her. She actually died in the same car crash as my father on the Southern State Parkway. And I only knew her as the nice lady who made apple strudel, right? Being the chubby kid, that's how I identified people, by what pastry they brought to the house. And I said, "Well, tell me about her. What'd she do that was so great?" And my mother said, "Well, she's basically a superhero." I said, "Superhero? How is she a superhero? She was, nice grandma." And she said, "Well, she wasn't always just a kindly old grandmother. She grew up in Ukraine in the 1920s and 30s. And when she was a young teen, her and her family were victims of Stalin's Holodomor, which is the Great Hunger. And Stalin, just like Putin is trying to today, which is, as a history teacher and somebody of Ukrainian heritage, my gut is just knots today seeing what's happening. History's repeating itself. But back then, Stalin, wanting to break the Ukrainians' will and subjugate them, took all the food out of the country. And over the course of a year, starved millions to death. And it's one of the great genocides of the 20th century, and almost nobody knows about it. She was in the middle of that. And her family had to do unspeakable things to survive. But what got them through was a belief that one day their family would have a future. That one day, maybe not them, but their children, their grandchildren, would have a nice life. And that was how they were going to fight Stalin. They were completely powerless against the Red Army. They had no means of resistance. But every day they chose to live. They chose to survive one more day, and eventually the tide would turn. And it did. Stalin relented. The food came back. And while they were subjugated, they were part of the Soviet Empire now, and there was not much they could do about it. They had hope that the family would go on. And just when things started to look a little bit better, Hitler's now master of Germany. And in 1939, he starts World War II by invading Poland. And then 2 years later, he unleashes Operation Barbarossa, which was the invasion of the Soviet Union, the largest battle in the history of the world. And Babcha's on the front line. And her village is quickly overrun. She's captured, separated from her family. She never sees another family member again. They're all killed. They might still be over in Ukraine. We have no idea what happened. And she's made a slave. I'm listening to this story. I said, what do you mean she was a slave? And that's what a lot of people don't understand about World War II. The Nazis, yes, they committed the Holocaust against the Jewish people, which is horrendous. But they enslaved folks like the Ukrainians and many of the other Slavic people, and they were going to use them as slave labor. And then once they were all used up, then they were going to be the next step in the final solution in exterminating all the undesirables. And my Babcha was a slave. And this is just blowing my mind. I'm like, how is this possible? And she was completely powerless, a teenage girl, no family, no nothing. And that's when the babushkas showed up, the old women in the camp. They saw this girl on her own, and they took pity on her. And they grabbed her, they brought her in. They said, okay, here, they put a babushka on her, the headscarf, to make her look older. And then they smeared her with animal waste. So the smell would scare off the German guards, if you catch what I'm saying here. And they took care of her at every turn in the camp. And the beautiful thing about those women, they didn't have to. And at times they actually put their own lives at risk, especially when my Babcha got pregnant. She met her husband, my grandfather Eustace, and they had a great relationship, as great as you can in a slave labor camp. But they all got through it together. And they had that same philosophy that one day they were going to outlast this dictator. And one day, the Borys family would have a great life again. And that's how they were. And that's a choice. You understand? They could just give up. They were powerless, but they had control of their own thoughts, and they had control of their heart. And what did they want to concentrate on? Did they want to concentrate on the evil, or did they want to concentrate on the future? And Hitler eventually commits suicide. They're free. And Babcha lasted not one, but two evil dictators. There's more tragedy. There's a whole story you can read about it in the book. But by the time she gets to the United States, she's homeless, two boys, not a penny, can't speak the language, but it was a good start. And from that moment, she had hope. And let me tell you, if you have hope, you can do anything. And by the time she died, decades later, She owned her own house. She had a small business. She met 4 grandkids, me being one of them. And that's how she beat Stalin and Hitler, by living this good life, by loving and becoming, by all rights, a successful person. And as like a 12-year-old sitting there, I'm floored, right? And although my problems were very real, and my problems could have consumed me, I was now inspired, right? And that's kind of the point of this story, and why I'm sharing this story, and that's why I wrote about it in the book. People right now are struggling with COVID. There might be addiction, alcohol, divorce, you name it, right? And we could make a whole list here forever about all the things that it's real, but I want you to understand you can win. Don't give up. Stay in the fight, like my Babcha did. Because if a Ukrainian peasant farmer could go on and beat 2 evil dictators, my goodness, whatever demons on your back, you got a shot. But the key, you got to get help, right? Nobody ever does anything on their own. As Babcha had the babushkas, other people, other angels came to her aid throughout the course of her life. You got to be able to accept the help and fight and get in that struggle. And doesn't mean you're always going to succeed, right?
Yeah.
but you got a shot, and that's a lot. That's all you can ever ask for.
Amazing story. That's a real hero, man. Slavery in Ukraine. Who would have thought?
Right, and that's we're looking at it right now. It could be the same thing happening. What's happening right now? It's a war of conquest. It's Hitler. When back in the day, he gobbled up little country, little country, little country. Everybody appeased him. Next thing you know, 60 million people had to die to stop him. What's Putin doing? And he's going after their government. Is he going to bring back a second Holodomor? These are the questions of our time, and what are we going to do about it? That's the big question, right? And that is the heartbreak of the whole situation. We haven't learned from history, and that's why I teach it. That's why we study it, and it's just gut wrenching.
Why do you teach?
I teach because my teachers saved me. I coach because my coaches saved me back in the day. Because after my mother told me my Babcha story, I'm on fire, right? Let's go. That's the greatest pep talk in the world, right? But how do you actualize that? How do you get back in the fight? How do you make something of yourself? And my mom said, well, you got to go play some football. And while she was concerned about the violence, and it is violent, she knew the men I would meet would go on and change my life. Not just the coaches, but the players. I remember having to run the warm-up lap first day, and I'm the out-of-shape kid, and I played Dungeons and Dragons. That's not going to help me. I got to run all around the school, and halfway through, I'm ready to quit. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go home, have some coffee cake, and call it a life. And our captain, this kid Jason, comes and grabs me. And he says, we're getting through this together, and basically drags me across the finish line for the first month. And the slogan of our team, and many other football teams have something similar, is Brothers Forever. That once you joined, you were part of a family. And it didn't matter if you were All-American or third string, which I was when I began. You're part of something special, something bigger than you. And that's what I think so many of us are missing right now. When you look at the political chaos, you want this candidate, people don't feel love. And in fact, I think that's a huge part of all our problems, is this absence of love, absence of community. You're different than me. No, you're not. When we get down to the core of it, we all want that same thing. And sports, saved my life. And also many of my teachers. My mother also got me in the special ed room. I had an IEP, individual education plan, and I had a teacher, Mrs. Dudick, who was about 5 foot tall. and I'm 6'3". She'd get up on a stool, grab me by the ear. Come on, we're gonna do the work, right? And kick your, you know what, or give you a hug when you needed it, and that's special, right? When to give you a kick in the butt and when to give you a hug, and both are very important. And they got me through. And it was also my mom sitting down there saying, "Okay, we're gonna set some goals." Goals, teenage kid, right? I can't see past the next meal, right? The only thing I'm noticing is the girl sitting next to me in class. I plan for the future. What are you talking about? And she goes, "Well, you're going to go to college. You're going to go to a great one. You're going to get a football scholarship. You're going to meet a beautiful girl, married, and live happily ever after." And if you heard her say this at that moment, back in the '80s, late '80s, whatever it was, you might call the hospital. You might think my mother has lost her mind, because these things were just preposterous that she was saying. There was not even a glimmer of hope I could do any of these things. She said, "What the hell else you got to do?" And from there, we started implementing the plan and working with teachers and coaches. And by the time I was in high school, it was junior year, it was all coming true. I was captain, my grades were great, I was being recruited. How the hell did that happen? It was because of belief and getting help and being inspired by my babcha, right? And just as we're about to achieve all these crazy goals, my mother's killed in a tragic car accident, leaving me and my sister orphaned as two teenage kids. And that's the whole premise of the book. Okay, what do you do now? When tragedy strikes, because guess what? It's going to keep coming back. Just like with my babcha, hey, you beat Stalin, well, here's Hitler. What are you going to do? Because no matter how hopeless it feels, you still have control of how you're going to respond to this adversity. But you're going to need help.
What was your help?
Immediately, it was my community. It was my football family. It was my teachers, neighbors, people we didn't even know. The old guy lived down the street who never came out of his house. He brings over a tray of chicken cutlets, and one lady in town giving my sister a job. One girl I was friends with, her father hired me to dig a hole in the backyard and paid me a shocking amount of money to dig this hole. And I'm saying, why am I digging this hole? And of course, he didn't need the hole dug, but he wanted to sit and talk to me and give me some money. But he needed an excuse, right? He just didn't want to hand me money, and he wanted to talk to me. And I got some of the greatest stories, and a lot of love sitting around digging the hole. I think he probably filled it in after we were done. But just to reach out and let you know we love you. I had friends, like I was going to the eve of going to college, right? I'm going to go, and I went to Fordham in the Bronx. And my friends are like, "Hey, we're going to have a party for you." I'm like, "Great." I come over, and they brought me things like shampoo and soap and toothpaste. I'm like, "What's all this?" They're like, "You're going away and you don't have any of this." They were checking up on me. And, things a mom would tell her son, "Hey, you got to buy all this stuff, this necessities." I'm like, "Oh, thanks." It was just angels would come out at the nick of time moment to try to help me and get me through. And that's why I got into education myself, as a way to pay forward all that kindness and help that allowed me to survive.
Why is survival important to you?
I have to, based on those stories I told you about Babcha, I'm on the hook. You understand? I am evidence, I am proof that she beat Stalin and Hitler. And if I give up, if I quit, if I crawl into a bottle, or if I leave my wife and kids, or, they win. They win. She literally walked through the gates of hell: genocide, slavery, homelessness, so I could have a nice life. And how dare I throw that away? And it doesn't mean you don't have to go become president or invent something, and become a bajillionaire, like these billionaires going to space and all that. I just have to be a decent person. I have to take care of my family. I have to help out in my community, and I do that through teaching and coaching and other things. And just try to, as my father always said to me, he wrote a note: be a man of love. Be a man of love. And that's the other reason I wrote the book. With the last 4 or 5 years, I don't see a lot of love. You look at social media, God forbid you watch the news. Everybody wants to tell you who to hate. Everybody wants to tell you what the problem is. But the solution is now and has always been love. And if we can go back and try to find out what we have in common, and we have a lot in common, versus what we don't. And a lot of things we don't are kind of superficial, and some of them are made up, right? Like you and I right now, we both have a little bit different hairstyles, right? And we're both beautiful in our own way. And who the hell cares? But by listening to your show, I know you got a heart. I know you're a loving, caring man. That's all we need. And then we can figure out the rest from there, right?
Now, forgive me if this sounds a bit strange, but how does one love?
That's a great question. You got to be brave. You have to be brave. When I wrote this book, I basically put my whole life on the line. I emptied the closet, um, and just have to take that risk. And of course, with that risk, you run the chance that you could be rejected. You run the chance of humiliation, right? It could all blow up in your face, but that's the it's worth everything. Um, my mother used to have an expression that, if you remember nothing else of this interview, please hold on to this: you can have what you want, or you can have excuses. By going after what you want and try, you can be crushed, right? But if you stay safe in your excuses, you can be very safe but very miserable. I had a lot of excuses. I could, not to become a bum, to become this. Oh, he lost his parents. He's learning disabled, right? And I would have gotten a lot of sympathy and a lot of understanding, but God knows where I'd be. Probably be dead in a gutter. Just like my babcha. He had the greatest excuses of all time: Stalin and Hitler. Who would have, But she wanted a better life. She wanted love. So if you want love, you got to put yourself out there, right? You got to take that leap. And by leaping, you can fall. And believe me, in my adult life, sure as with you, we've stumbled. We've had some heartbreaks. We've had some crushing blows, from some unexpected places. But you got to get back up, and you got to keep trying, because that's what life's all about.
So you have a learning disability.
Yes.
Hmm. What is it specifically?
It was reading issues. They described it as a mild form of dyslexia. It wasn't where you reverse everything, but it was something that really impaired me. I read very slow and still do. Um, Trouble writing, which is what school is all about: reading and writing. And it's about finding, strategies how to compensate and how to succeed despite that limitation. Writing a book about my college roommate, who was a brilliant guy, a lovely person, but could stay up fooling around, getting into some trouble. I'm studying at the library all night, and then we'd both do well, but he'd get a higher grade. Um, and that's why I'm bald. I ripped my hair out from all that frustration. But it's just about overcoming yet another adversity, right? That's another excuse. Well, let me just pack it in. I have a learning disability. Or you could find teachers, and like we like to say in football, take the coaching. Humble yourself that somebody knows more than you. Learn from them, and go on and have success.
Let me be open here too. I also have dyslexia as well, so I could sympathize with you on that. It was a nightmare at the start, but it's hard work. You know. Now I'm listening to you speak, and you seem like such a calm guy. What made you so calm?
Um, I'm calm right now because I'm doing what, speaking to you and trying to get this word is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. Now, in other times and places, if we're on the football field or something, I'm not so calm. And, this is just one side of me like everybody else, right? Um, I had a pretty good fight with my daughter the other day, and she would not say that I'm always calm. As you know, fathers and their children clash sometimes. But I get calm when I'm talking about this because I feel that this is, what I'm supposed to be doing is spreading this message. And this is, when I'm talking to you about this, I'm coming from a place of love. And, the more I can focus in on this, and just stay on that message of love, that's when I feel like I'm calm. It's when I get off track and I start, reading social media posts or this or worrying about money or, the million things. That's when you get off track, and that's when you can lose your cool. Um, so yeah, right now I'm calm because I'm kind of very focused and centered. That's always hard. That's hard to maintain, right?
How do you stay centered?
You got to go back to your priorities, and figure out, what's most important in life, and have a goal. For me, it's being a dad and being a husband and being a good leader of the community, as a teacher. And when you lose that focus, that's where you start getting into the shadow side of your personality, and wanting other things that aren't important, that are superficial, that can stress you out.
What was your shadow side?
Um, Being overcome by the anger of all my loss, and especially looking around. We grew up in a nice community, and we had a nice house. My parents were wise; they had life insurance policies. So while we were never rich, but we didn't have to quit school and work in a coal mine or anything like that. Just feeling jealousy. Why did I lose both parents? Why is this happening to me? And hating people because of that. I always have to help recenter. I always thought about my mother. One thing I asked her about the woman who caused the car accident my father and my babcha died in. It was a head-on collision on the Southern State Parkway. The other woman who was in the accident fell asleep, had been drinking late at night, and crossed the divider and hit him head on. And I asked my mom, "Do you hate her? Do you hate that woman?" And my mother said, "Yeah, she hated her for quite some time because that woman, even though it was an accident, stole my mother's life. And my mother had every right to hate her, and she could hate her for the rest of her life. But then my mother began to realize that she could hate this woman or she could love me and my sister. And she couldn't do both. She didn't have time and energy to do both. As a single mom, there's not a moment's break, right? Um, and she had needy kids. Me and my sister, we were not like rocket scientists, doing stuff on our own. Um, and she had only so much energy and strength, and she said she could forgive because by hating somebody, you're not hurting that person. You're only hurting yourself. And so through forgiveness, she found strength. Um, and I screw this up all the time, right? I get angry, I get pissed off at this, I feel I'm being mistreated or something. And you can be angry for as long as you want. Is it helping you? And the quicker you find your focus, the quicker you shift back to love, the quicker you can have a happy and successful life, right? And please understand, I screw this up all the time. I'm not preaching from the mountain here, right? I'm talking as a very flawed person, but I wanted to share this knowledge or these conclusions I've come to from looking at my mom and my bapcha and some other crazy things that have happened in my life. And hopefully, maybe this can help somebody listening right now, and maybe reading the book can help somebody right now and get them back on track to have a better life.
Now, this may sound a bit redundant. I'm not trying to make it sound redundant, but how do you actually forgive someone?
It's hard. You have to forgive them every day, and you have to make a choice to forgive them. And it's something, I still struggle with from time to time, but it's about always remembering you have that choice and looking at what your goals in life actually are and recentering that and saying, hey, is my goal in life to hate person X? Okay, then by all means, if that's giving you a happy, productive life, make that choice. And especially when something is new and fresh, you may do that, and it's okay. It's okay to get angry at people, and you may have every real reason to be angry. But at some point, you have to say, okay, when are we going to transition to being productive? By forgiving that person, you're freeing yourself. You're freeing yourself, and it's a little bit of self love there, and then you're also giving yourself more energy to share with the ones who you love. And yes, I screw this up all the time.
Why do you value honesty?
Uh, you know, because it's going to give me um, integrity to actually, have people's trust. If we're not honest with each other, how can we ever build a civilization? So much of life is trust, right? People give me their kids every day, whether in the classroom or on a sports field somewhere, and they trust I'm going to take good care of them and give them back, right? If I'm lying, there's no trust. And how can we ever leave our house? The repairman comes over to fix something, the electric, I don't know. I got that trust makes the world go round. And then when you get people who are lying, especially in places of power, I think that's why we have so much commotion in our society right now, especially with, I would say in class, when you look at a source and there's two different sides to it, but there's only one set of facts, now that's what we're getting into. Everybody's got their own set of facts. It's not like, okay, fact, I'm bald. What's your opinion? Do you like it? Maybe, you know, it would be like me getting on here and saying I have luscious Thor-like hair, right? That's an alternate fact, and somebody's lying. And I think that's the problem, is that everybody knows somebody's lying. It's hard to identify who, and I think that's the commotion. And I think that's why everybody's so upset on whatever side of whatever issue you might be on. Uh, I think we just want the truth. I think people can handle the truth. You can process it. It might be upsetting, but at least you know where you stand.
Where do you stand?
I stand as somebody who wants to just keep preaching this message of that we have more in common than we don't. That we all want to be loved. That we all want to be heard. That we all are having a human experience. Many of us are in pain, and if somebody's lashing out, they're in pain, and it's probably not because of you. And if we could have a bit more understanding, I think we'd be in a lot better place.
Excellent. And now I'm thinking, after hearing all this information, when you first wrote your book, what was your first thought?
The beginning of the book is a series of conversations I have with my mother. And I wrote it like that as a suggestion from a friend, but it was also to bring her back. Especially in this time of chaos. If there was one person who I'd want to come back, it would be her, because of her wisdom and the way she could make people feel. It wasn't just me sitting at the table with her. We had friends and relatives and anybody who ever had a problem, right? We would sit down with my mother, with Norma was her name, and would just leave feeling a whole lot better. And in that way, that was her superpower. And I was also very excited to write it because now she's immortal. You always have the old expression, you die twice, once when you died and when nobody remembers you. Well, we're getting to a point, there's not a lot of folks around who still remember her, or at least not the way I would want them to. And now with this book, she's part of the ages now. She's not just my memory. Anybody who's struggling with whatever problem can now sit down with my mom at that kitchen table and have a piece of cake and maybe a cigarette if you're so inclined. Not that I'm pushing smoking, but to each their own, and just have hope, right? And so now she can inspire hope for as long as this book's in print.
Why did you teach in a high school?
Because the little kids drive me nuts. No, I'm kidding. No, my personality and my temperament, I think, is better suited for the high school. But all kids are great, and I've coached everything from kindergarten to college. But intellectually, I love teaching the U.S. history curriculum. I love teaching economics, and there's just so many great entryways to teach the facts, but then just have kids explore critical thinking and come to their own conclusions and come to their own ideas and assessments of things. And I always say that, especially my seniors, when you graduate, when you turn 18, we're handing the keys to the country over to you. You're now running the country. Please fix it. Please do a better job than me and my generation and the boomers did, right? Um, and I want them to leave realizing that if you don't like something in the country, if it's not going your way, fix it, participate, vote, run for something, write be like you and do a podcast and get the message out there peacefully, peacefully. You know, and that goes, teach the civil rights movement. Don't blow stuff up, right? And on a, and we have, and that's the beauty of our system, with the First Amendment and all that sort of thing, is to participate. And if you're not participating, then shut the heck up, because you have given up your right, to be pissed if you let other folks make those decisions for you. And that's what I want them to do, not just sit and yell at the TV or just get sucked into social media or video games. That this is their country, and make something of it.
And for a while when you were talking, my mind was buzzing around a bit because you mentioned economics. Why are you in economics?
Well, it happened because nobody else wanted to teach it again.
Oh,
But no, it's fascinating, right? It's fascinating subject. Um, it's like maybe like the Ring of Power. It's the one subject that controls them all. Um, Give the Lord of the Rings reference there. Um, my nerdiness was exposed, but what is, you go to a party, and as an economics teacher, you're not often invited to a party, but from what I imagine, what's everybody want to talk about? Money. If a married couple's having a fight, probably what's that fight about? Money. And it's not just it's about how you meet your basic needs. And if it's the one subject that if you don't pay attention to, my goodness, right? It's something that can't be ignored, whether it's investing, dealing with mortgages, credit cards, and it's a great way to give kids a survival guide for the world that they're in. And of course, we actually link the economics with participation in government and law. We wrote a whole year-long course for the seniors that links everything, from how to deal with a credit card, what should you do when the police pull you over, to how you can go to a school board meeting and influence what happens at your own school district, and advocate and have a voice. Um, we set the class up by having projects the whole year where the kids compete against each other, trying to one up each other in a year-long contest. And there's a reward at the end of the year. The kids don't have to write a winning team doesn't have to write a research paper, and it's and getting them to work together is, again, that's what life's all about. You're doing this podcast, but you have a whole team behind you, right? You
yeah.
know, and you need all these people working together in order to create this great product. And that could be a corporation, that could be a family, it could be the deli on the corner. You need that in all aspects of life. And too often we forget about that. We say, "Oh, it's me." No, it's not you. Maybe you might be the face of it, but there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes to get you to that point. And it's about appreciating all those people behind you, um, and taking care of them.
Good, good. Now, just to jump to another thing, what do you think about pets? Do you think pets help you a lot?
Oh, animals, pets, pet. Yes, um, pets are tremendous. Do you have any pets?
No, no. I know you have a pet parrot, though.
My pet parrot. Yes, we had. We lost the parrot. The parrot passed away.
Sorry.
We're running out of animals here. When the kids were younger, we had a whole zoo, and now their time has come. Right now, we have a dog named Queenie, and no, and our other dog who passed away years ago, Bandit. Um, pets give you a tremendous amount of emotional support. And not everybody's into pets, but I'm certainly a big fan of pets, and they can certainly give you some good reinforcement, especially if you had a bad day. The dog's always happy to see you.
And another thing I want to get into is insomnia.
Oh
How did
yeah.
that work?
Um, a lot of it had to do with stress. As a kid, I did not want the day to start, and it was about not having hope. And being in my house was safe, right? In my bed, in my room, there was nobody hurting me. There was no test I was failing. There was no, teacher making fun of my learning disability and mocking me publicly. There was no, kid giving you a wedgie on the playground. And waking was going to bring about all that struggle again. And so, you lay in bed terrified. What's going to happen? What's going to go wrong? And it's not having hope, not feeling that you're going to be going to a loving, caring place the next day. But that started to change, once you realize you got love, and there are people who they were going to take care of you. Um, and that's when you can start sleeping a little bit better at night.
How was it like the first time you slept properly?
My goodness. Um, it was probably right around the night before my wedding. Once I realized, okay, we kind of did it. Um, I got I graduated from my master's degree, hired at the job that I've been at for the last 25 years, and married all in the same weekend. Right, so that was a pretty busy weekend, and it was after all this chaos. Right, that was the turning point, saying, "Hey, we did it." Um, all this stuff that should have never happened. Through love, faith, support of hundreds of teachers, coaches, family members, you know, God knows, came all together, and wow, it worked. So now you're at that high. Now, of course, 25 years later, has my life just been perfect? And, oh, there are other challenges along the way. There's other obstacles. There's always the next thing. But the past challenges make you stronger, and they kind of give you some blueprints how to deal with new ones. Doesn't mean you're not going to get down and be hurt and and be upset, but again, just realizing how you react is within your control.
Hmm. How do you know what's in your control?
Hmm. Um, Many things aren't, right, but um, when you think about it, I can't control the next question you're going to ask, but I control my response to your question. So I can't control you. I can't control the winter storm we just got hit with, right? I can't control the actions of the other driver on the highway, but I control my response to it. And so that's all I can worry about. And it's about worrying about what you can control. You know, doesn't mean you're not prepared for things, and preparation's very, very important. Get a generator if you're worried about the power getting out, right? That's something that you can control. Uh, Getting another degree, if you feel that your industry is coming into an end, right? Or if your skill set is no longer going to be valued. And there's an old book, "Who Moved My Cheese?" Right? I don't know if you ever read that. Start getting going when you see the warning signs. Hey, get prepared. Not just sit there and hem and haw about, complain. It's take some action.
Now, for the sake of time, let's take a glance at your website and give you some publicity here.
Sure. Are you guys pulling it up? Do you want me to talk about it at all, or?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Technical team. All right. Yeah. Okay. Excuse me. All right. There's the link.
Sure. There's the book. It's by Page Publishing. You can purchase it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, Google, all the major sites. You can contact me at my email, steve.borys@gmail.com. I'd be happy to talk to you about, issues and troubles in your life or about the book. You can reach me on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, all those great sites by the same name. And I hope you read the book, and I hope you get something out of it. Hope it helps give you hope for a better tomorrow.
And the book cover. Who made that cover?
I designed it, with the graphics department at the publisher. I don't have those sort of skills. Um, but yeah, I thought it would be a great way to, maybe intrigue people and also kind of summarize the main idea of the book.
Are you self-published?
Yes.
Impressive. Any specific reason you did that?
I wanted to get it out there. I'm a novice at this. I talked to some people, and you have to go through a literary agent and get reviewed, and maybe it's get rejected, and who knows. I just wanted it to be out there, and I wanted to get its message out there, you know, um, and just use it as a platform to try to help people and help change things. I'm also doing motivational speaking, and I'm starting to get into, not right now because we're still dealing with COVID, but in the spring, I'm planning on getting into high schools and other community um, uh, groups and organizations, and just trying to have conversations and give speeches like I'm having here with you, um, about what we can do to try to help people and bring this world together. Yep, and there's my YouTube. That's the thing. I'm going to start posting videos on YouTube and on TikTok. That'll be a new experience, getting on TikTok for all the youngsters. All the old people are invading TikTok now.
Okay, boomer. Yeah, I know those memes. Why were you called boomer?
Oh, Boomer, my my nickname in the book. One of your staff reading the book. Um, there's a whole thing on nicknames in the book. Um, that's one of the subplots, I guess you could say, of the book, is that some people gave me nicknames out of love. Like one great man called me the Golden Moose. That's back in the day. I did have beautiful blonde hair, and that was a name that when he would tell me, "Hey, Moosey," he'd call me Moosey, and it would just fill you with love, right? And that was his choice to call me that and let me know that I was special. I just wasn't Steve. By giving somebody a nickname like that, lets you know that person really cares about you. Boomer was actually given to me by a teacher as a way to make fun of me. Um, I was a fat kid, and he would come up and called me Boomer because when I would walk, being heavy, uh, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
That's a
big six
professional,
three man, walking around.
right? And it wasn't, and there were positive nicknames you give to people for being big, right? Like I had a football coach, who was a beautiful man who loved me, called me Herman Munster because I was big and I was a little stiff, maybe like Herman
Yeah,
Munster, the old guy. I love that
yeah.
because that was a positive one, saying I'm a big, strong, monster in a positive way. Only I guess sports mentalities would understand that. But oh my God, and I would do anything for that man. That man helped save my life so many times. But this other guy chose hate. He said, "Well, here's a helpless, powerless 12-year-old. Let's make fun of him." And then he would take the ruler and poke me in the stomach and make a noise like the air was coming out. Psst. That was his choice. And so, well, how are you going to respond to that? Are you going to let that overcome you and make you feel like you're a piece of crap? And for a lot of kids and a lot of people, they would. And I did succumb to that for many times, until I had other people, calling me Golden Moose and Herman Munster, right? And let them know that they loved me and cared about me, you know. And then you just have fun ones, like my sister used to call me FBI Police, which stood for Fat Boys in Paradise. You know, that's just something fun you have with your sister, right?
Yeah.
Your sibling rival, and that's all great. So some are fun, but that's where the boomer comes from.
Yeah.
And again, that's one kind of teacher. You can choose to be that teacher, or you could choose to be somebody who's going to try to help.
And here's a different thing. You're an experienced man. You've sort of done this for a while. If anyone wants to get into something that involves helping others, how do you help others?
Get on the phone right now and call a friend you haven't heard from in a while.
Hmm.
You know, um, hey, listen for warning signs. That's the immediate way you can help. Go down and have a beer or a coffee with somebody. Um, Volunteer. Volunteer to coach a little league sports team or something like that. Go work down at the. I have a buddy who works at the food pantry by his local church. It's not even his denomination. It's close to his house, and it's a great way to help. And he always gets in trouble for giving the kid an extra bag of potato chips. They yell, "Hey, give him but that's just who he is. He's a beautiful man, and and it's again, it could be any number of ways. And especially now there's so many ways where you can help. And I would just advise, give of your time, not necessarily of your checkbook. I mean, you can, and donating money is great. Um, but giving of your time and being a presence, that I think is even more powerful.
This has been a great interview. Do you have any words you would like to give to the audience?
I just want everybody, the whole purpose of this project was to let everybody know uh, your pain is real. It's not your fault. You don't deserve it. We love you, and we're going to get through this together. And I think if we heard that more often, I think the world would be a better place.
Excellent story. Excellent. Thank you again, Steve.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for having me on your show. And the work that you're doing here is outstanding. And I just have to say, I really love your interview style and your very thoughtful questions. It was a real pleasure.
No problem, Steve. I will do this again. And so, another thing, also, I'd like to give a special thanks to our sponsor that's supporting our show as well, Allison Roberts, great woman, one of the top 100 coaches out there. Please buy her book as well. And also support us on Patreon too, so we can keep pushing out wonderful content like this right here. I'm Jimbo Paris, and this is the Jimbo Paris Show. Thank you for listening to the Jimbo Paris Show.